Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for everyone who's come out for the inaugural Startup Grind of Sonoma. Super excited to see all these faces. And I want to say off the top, thank you so much to Ramekins for being our host for the evening of the venue and sponsor. And also, thank you to Mike Lee Films, who's doing our videography. He's our other sponsor. So big round of applause for our sponsors. So a little background on Startup Grind. So Startup Grind is based out of Silicon Valley. They've got chapters in over 170 different locations, and they're in over 75 countries. And so what had gone on is a friend of mine had turned me on to Startup Grind, and I started following one of their chapters, and I was really impressed with their content and what they were doing and producing and how they were connecting that community. And so it occurred to me that I could apply to them to have Sonoma shows as their next chapter. And so as I started to dig a little deeper and go through some part of that application process, I realized there was this really rich tapestry and undercurrent, more so, of entrepreneurial folks in Sonoma Valley. And so what was going on is that it was very much pocketed and under the radar. And so there's this common misconception that if you wanted to chase opportunity, it was necessary to leave the valley. And the more research I started to do, the more it turned that concept on its head. And so thought that this would be an excellent thing for Sonoma and Sonoma Valley in general to start to put all of this entrepreneurial energy together so that we've got entrepreneurs at heart, investors, and the service providers that serve investors and entrepreneurs connecting together. So that's the background on it. It's going to be a monthly event. Next month's event is going to be at SoCo Nexus, which is in Ranere Park, and it's a tech and entrepreneurial incubator. That's going to be on Thursday, November 19th, and that's going to be with Eric Galata, who's the founder of the Stompers and has multiple different law office practice locations and has a really interesting entrepreneurial streak going on for himself. And then the one after that will be on Tuesday, December 8th. It looks like we might get the butcher from Thistle Butcher Shop in Petaluma, who's got a fascinating story going. And then January is going to be John Sebastiani from Crave Jerky. So, with that, let's dive on in. So, tonight we've got Jared Ranere here, and Jared's the CEO of Brief. And so, part of the reason why I wanted to work with Jared for our first event is that it's one thing to build a company up, run it for however many numbers of years, ramp your sales up 10x, and then sell to an investor and move on to a next gig. And a lot of times we'll hear those success stories and they'll look retrospectively back at what they had done and talk about, here's how I was strategizing at the time and here's what was going on. I think we tend to, when we review our work in challenging moments from that lens, we romanticize a lot of what's going on. And so all of a sudden that entrepreneurial picture looks much rosier than it sometimes might have been. And so what I think is really interesting about Jared and his spot in the trajectory right now with Brief is that it's an earlier stage company that's just starting to get some traction and have some good success. And I think there's a lot of value for those of us that are pursuing our own entrepreneurial endeavors to hear from another entrepreneur of when you're in the heart of the matter, what's going on in your head, what does that internal dialogue sound like, where's your heart space at, et cetera. And so one of the big takeaways from today is hopefully learning from Jared about what's going on in his head and how he thinks about things during the execution phase. So general roadmap, just going to talk about Jared's company story for a little while, a bit of his own background and how he's come to be in this position. We'll cross over for some of his beliefs on entrepreneurship and where the company is going, and then wrap up with some Q&A. So without further ado, big welcome to Jared Ranere for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, focusing on the company itself, and let's kind of start with two areas, one being the founding of it, and then, after we kind of clear through that, we'll cross over and talk a little bit more about liftoff, which is kind of where you're at right now. But if you don't mind, just give our attendees a little snapshot about Brief and where things are at.
Yeah, sure. So I kind of want to start by saying that this story is very early, right? So Jay mentioned that, but I want to underscore that anything I talk about from my experience today is we don't know if that's the right way to do things because it hasn't happened yet, right? Like I was just talking to Grover and he has amazing startup stories and I'm going to have a hard time topping them right now. But I highly encourage you go find Grover after this and talk to him. This is a really nice room, so I'm excited to be here for that reason. So Brief is a personal trainer for your business relationships, or this is our little A/B test, a personal trainer for self-promotion for freelancers. So I'm not sure which sentence encapsulates this the best. I'm actually going to run an A/B test on this on our website very soon. But the idea is that if you are a freelancer or a solopreneur, you love spending all of your time and energy on the work. That's what you got into it for. That's what you love to do. But if you don't sell yourself, you are broke and you don't get to do the work. And so what we commonly see is you get a project and you spend all your time and energy on that and you love it. And then the project ends and you have no work in front of you. And then we call this the feast or famine cycle, because then you panic and you put all your energy in sales and you don't like it very much because that's not what you got into it for. And then you get a job and you're like, great, don't have to sell anymore. And you stop selling, you do the project, and then you have no job again, right? So it's a cycle. And we're setting out to ameliorate at least, and at best, end the feast or famine cycle. And the way we think we do that is by helping you connect to your existing relationships in a much stronger way and stay top of mind with all the people who might refer you, who might, who are former clients, who are prospects, and also help you make new connections and expose your work to the right people. And we want to help you do that in seconds per day, minutes per day. So if you think about a medium-sized business with a sales team, they've got 1 to 10 to more people, sometimes dozens, spending 8 hours a day or more on sales using very complex tools, and also marketing teams to generate leads. We're trying to figure out how we can capture all of that and put it into a mobile app, so while you're on the go, you get 3 suggestions or more every morning that you just tap through. And the suggestions are based off of an analysis of your emails, your calendar events, your social media interactions, and more to come, that figure out who you need to reconnect with, that you've lost touch with, and who are good targets for you to make new connections with. And so the suggestions are kind of like, follow this person on Twitter because you emailed them 3 weeks ago and they never got back to you, so try a new channel. And so the idea is by spending a few minutes every morning, you put yourself in top of mind with people who matter, you go on to do your project work, and then when opportunities arise from those people or they have a moment to refer you, they're thinking about you instead of somebody else. That's what Brief does.
Thank you. So a quick question for the room. How many folks here, by show of hands, are solopreneurs or freelancers this evening?
Awesome.
Yeah, so very targeted. And anyone here who has launched a business recently or is in sort of a startup year phase?
Cool.
Okay, wow. I was going to do a quick go around, but that's a lot of people. So let's save that for the latter part, but that's awesome. One of the things that I just want to touch on that Jared was saying about using Brief for this style of work, and I will say one of the things that I forgot to tell you is to the point of your business goal, I got a new client out of using Brief already.
Woohoo! Is that on tape? Send that to the Valley.
And the concept that intrigued me about it, so touch background on myself, I used to be an attorney and I was doing trial work, and when I was attending a trial seminar, what they were talking about is the way to frame some of your arguments is through 2 concepts, and that's primacy and recency. And that the thing that when folks are having impressions made upon them, and the way our memory works, it's what we heard first, the primacy, and it's the recency is what we most recently heard or what you heard last. And so I think that's very effectively what Brief does. It allows you to continue to work your network in very simple little touch points as far as just seeing that somebody else retweeted you. And so I know for myself, whenever I see someone forward on my own tweets or Facebook posts, I take that quick moment and it's that positive emotional input where you're saying, oh wow, thank you, I appreciate you doing that. And just keeping that person top of frame of mind.
Yeah.
Going back to Business Snapshot.
Yeah.
When were you guys founded?
We were founded June of 2014.
And size of the team so far?
We are two full-time co-founders, myself and my CTO, Martin Anderson. And we have two freelancers. One is our product designer, and another is a friend of ours who's a market researcher and strategist who wanted to invest, but he's a freelancer and solopreneur, so he puts all of his income into expenses, and so he didn't qualify as an accredited investor, and was like, well, what if I do some work for you instead for equity? And we were like, that sounds great, because you're super senior and we couldn't afford you otherwise. So we've got him, and then we've got an intern out of UVA who's just this incredibly smart, ambitious person that found me through a mentorship program. And he said, how do I get involved in a startup? And I said, find one that you like and do whatever it takes to do something they like. And he said, I like brief, what can I do for you? And I said, be careful what you wish for. So I signed him up, and he's been doing lots of great stuff for us. So that's our team.
And where are you guys based out of?
So we are based in the Bay Area, and I don't mean that to be vague, but we don't have an office right now. We work mostly remotely from each other. I live in Sausalito. My co-founder lives in Oakland. Our product designer is in Portland, Oregon. So we span the states, and our market researchers in New York, and obviously the interns in Virginia. So my co-founder and I meet up in San Francisco from time to time. We work out of the Amazon Web Loft, Web Services Loft, AWS Loft on Market Street, which is, if you don't know about it and you ever have to go to the city to work, it is extremely easy to get a badge. I think you have to have been a customer at one point or be a customer today, and it's free co-working space. They're open 10 to 6. There's coffee, snacks, beer. It's a great space, great Wi-Fi, lots of smart people hanging out that you can talk to.
So, and final question, funded or unfunded?
That's an interesting question. So we have raised some money. We did a very small friends and family round right out of the gate. But we're not really using that anymore. Like we use that. So we're in a sense bootstrapping right now, just beginning to raise our first round, right? So we've got a couple commitments, and we are hitting the trails, as they say, trying to raise some money right now.
Awesome. So I think, when we talk about entrepreneurship, it's always interesting to look back and think about what was that movie that was playing inside your head when you first decided to pursue a venture. What would it look like on the back of the napkin if you were to describe what was going on? And so I'd love for you to talk about how did this all go, get into concept form for you?
Yeah, so this is one of those flag moments where it's like, this is how I did it. I have no idea if it's a good way, but basically I was working at AOL as part of Patch, and I had gotten there through an acquisition. The first startup I worked at was called Outside In. We were a hyperlocal news startup. Patch was a hyperlocal news network. There was a few around here, I think. We put journalists in mainly suburbs across America, some cities, and tried to produce as much hyperlocal journalism as possible and create an engaging platform for the citizens to consume that news and talk to each other and post events and kind of do it all. We called it a platform for your town. So I was working there, and I was 2.5 years and change out of startup life, knew I wanted to get back into it, spent a lot of time in heavy debates with the executive management team at Patch, and said to myself, I want to get back in the startup world. I could go to like some sort of Series B type startup and join that and be like a product person or something, but I spend all this time with management, debating with them, and I think about how they're in their shoes a lot, and I said, if I really want to have these debates in a more informed way, I got to try it myself. I can't be a Monday morning quarterback. And I had some ideas in the back of my head that were incredibly difficult to really articulate and make real while I was still working at Patch, because that was a full-time job and then some. So I decided to just take a leap and stop the job so that I could find some time to really think about what I wanted to do. So I took 6 weeks to not really do anything in any structured way, which is really hard for me. I went to museums and stuff. And then in January of 2014, I sat down on January 3rd, right after the holidays, and I said, I'm going to do a startup. Here's a schedule. And I said by the end of January, I was going to choose one of 5 to 10 ideas I had. I think the end of March was my goal, or like I think it's at the end of February. I was going to at least have a solid lead on a co-founder that I want to work with. And by the end of June, I would either have raised some money or have somebody who committed to giving us some money.
You're saying that, like, it horrifies me to go on a road trip with you. It's amazing the amount of structure that you had to be setting these goals along. I'm picturing your cabinets being super methodical. Is this how you are in the rest of your life outside of this, or is this something foreign to you?
No. I don't know. So I think of myself like a sort of creative weirdo, but I don't know if I am that. And the reason why is because I started my career as a theater professional, right? So I was a director and an actor and a writer and a producer of theater. It's like all I knew how to do from the ages of 12 to 26. And so when I graduated college, it was 2003. I had a liberal arts degree, and it was a mild recession. It wasn't anything like we had in 2007, but there weren't a lot of jobs to be had, and I didn't want to go into consulting or finance. And I said, well, the only thing I know how to do is put on a show, so I guess I'll keep doing that. And I did it, and it was really fun, but I was now a creative freelancer, right, at that point. And I was like the worst at selling myself. So this is sort of where it comes from, right? I was like, oh, I'll get to read books and like write stuff, and I'll have these interesting ideas, then I'll put on a show and everybody will love it, and then they'll come and hire me for things. And that's how life works, right? You do great work and people just hire you. And that's really not how it works. You really have to put yourself out there in a way I didn't know how to do and wasn't prepared to do. So, in a strange twist of fate, I needed a day job at a certain point. And through my network, believe it or not, I landed one at this startup. And it was funny. I went to a temp agency as well, and I speak Italian because I studied abroad there. That was like one of my goals in college, was to study abroad in Italy. I was very ambitious. So it was between answering the phones at Alitalia at a temp agency would set me up with, or this startup in Park Slope. I lived in New York at the time, where I could walk to work and wear shorts and a t-shirt in the middle of summer, and the founder was this really interesting author, and he needed a research assistant and somebody to do some scheduling for him. And I was like, that sounds great. And he said, give me 6 months, because it sounds like your theater career could happen. And I said, I can give you 6 months. That sounds great. And I was like, as long as you give me the opportunity to grow if I decide I'm interested in the internet. And he said, that sounds great. So I ended up landing in a BD role. So like, you can picture this guy who was a theater director, was terrible at selling himself and terrible at self-promotion, and got some interesting jobs, but they were very sporadic. A close friend of mine now, and my boss at the time, sat me down after a few months of being an executive admin, and he said, so you're going to be our first BD guy. And I said, that sounds awesome. Sign me up. I'm going to do so well at this. And he said, great, I'm super excited for you. And I went back to my desk and I Googled business development because I had no idea what it was. and I found out that it was kind of like sales, but a fancy name for it. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to go horribly. Like, I don't know how to do this. And so he was a BD person, and so he kind of told me what I had to do. And what I learned was that if you were selling some other product that isn't you, right, and isn't some idea you've been dreaming about all night, it's a lot easier, right? So as a theater director, every time I would go out there, I'd be like, hey, you're a producer. I'm going to do this crazy thing. It's going to be about obesity, and it's going to be modern dancers, and then that's the first act, and then the second act they're going to talk, and the audience is going to be amazed that they're going to talk, and the producer would be like, wow, that could be like a really interesting story. And if he said no, I would be like, wow, you think I'm a terrible human and I have no good ideas ever. But if I was selling our startup and products that we had, it was like a business opportunity, so it was a million times easier than this crazy idea for a story that I could put on stage. But secondly, it wasn't about me. It was an idea that the team had to solve a problem for a customer. And I learned through that how to sell, how to divorce yourself from a no, how to do super high volumes so that you ask 1 million people to do the thing you want them to do. And if they say, no, it's no big deal because you go on to the next thing and it's not about you, it's about them. Did they have a need for what you're selling? And if they didn't, it's no big deal. So I totally lost track of where we were. What was I supposed to be talking about? Sorry.
Where that aha moment came in. But you
You're
talking about the struggles of the solopreneur, the freelancer, believing in what you do, and then how does this crystallize?
So the interesting thing is that all of these things that influence what we're doing with Brief today and are really the why of why I care about it so much and why I wake up every day and I'm like, I cannot wait to figure out how to help creative freelancers and solopreneurs do this. It was deeply in the back of my mind when I left Patch, like way, way back there. And I had kind of forgotten about it. And so what I was excited about when we left Patch was this fact that when I was in the workplace, I had all these meetings that were super redundant because somebody would be like, oh, I have this idea, and there's a couple questions about it, and then somebody else would be like, I swear somebody else had that idea before, and like wrote up an entire document about it with like pros and cons and like our learnings from the last time we tried it, and either nobody would remember that it existed or they wouldn't be able to find those documents, right? And we were using Google Drive, we were using Evernote, we were storing things in email, we were writing notes on notepads. It was an incredibly disorganized thing, and AOL had a wiki, which had like knowledge from 1995 on when they had tried like every single internet business idea on 56K modems. It was like a font of information that was incredible, but nobody ever remembered to look at it. So I was like, what if I could make something that searched your conversation in real time against an index of your Evernote, Google Drive, your company wiki, and your email attachments, and then pinged you when something related to the conversation you were having turned up. I really liked that idea. It stuck in my head for like 6 months. It was the idea that I brought to Martin when we first started talking, and we thought that it was like Evernote on steroids, like it wasn't just this pile of dormant stuff. You could like really bring your information to life. And so we dug deep into that. And we realized that there was like massive UX challenges against pinging you in real time during a conversation you were trying to have. So that was like the first sort of like, okay, let's think about how this could really be. Then we got into like a whole thing on meeting preparation and document file management in the workplace, and could we automate file management with a tagging system using machine learning classification algorithms, because we were also really deeply into machine learning at this time. So we spent February from when I first started talking to Martin, and the way I found Martin was hilarious. I called him, like some people were like, oh, you're talking about some ideas that I think people in the Valley would be good at, and I was in New York, and they were like, you should talk to some people out there. And Martin was an old friend of mine, and I called him up and I said, who should I talk to? And he said, well, me. He was like, I'm thinking about doing something, so let's talk about what's on your mind. And so several months ensued of a lot of conversation and a lot of prototyping, like a lot. We would throw up a website after working on it for a weekend. We would email a bunch of people who we thought had the problem we were working on, ask them if they would use it. They would say yes or no. If they said yes, we would find out if they really did, and then 2 weeks later we'd find out they were totally lying, and we would trash it. And this went on for a while until like end of December of 2014, when we like finally figured out that files were just one form of communication, that it's a way to communicate an idea. And then among communicating ideas, there are like kind of two reasons why you do it for work. There's to complete a project, or there's to sell something. Those are like the main communication needs. And so you've got client service people and sales people and business development people who really want stuff organized around a client and are serving that need. And then you've got project managers and product managers who are doing projects. We thought that the relationship people had deeper pockets and were more ready to spend money on something, so we spent like a lot of time studying the sales enablement market and all those things. And then after a little while, we were like, I don't know, salespeople. Like, I know I did BD for a while, but that wasn't what I was super excited about in life. We were like, who else like has issues like this? Like, who needs to sell stuff and like has problems with it and is like not nearly as well served as the sales market that everybody thinks is so huge? And there's like a million CRMs and predictive analytic tools for salespeople. And then I remember, and then I was like talking to my dad, and he's an architect and has owned his own firm for like 30 years. It's never been more than 5 people, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sales. It's like the last thing I get to at the end of every day. You know, I have to do it, and I don't like doing it. And marketing is like picking up the phone and calling somebody, and it's really difficult to fit into my day." And I was like, "Oh, that's super interesting." And I was like, "Oh wait, I kind of remember doing that." And then that whole experience post-college came flooding back into me. Martin's wife is an architect. My wife freelanced as a producer for like 3 years, right before her recent job. And we started looking around, and we were like, everybody around us has freelanced, is about to freelance, wants to, is freelancing, owns a small business. It's a huge part of the population. They're growing super rapidly. We know them, we have been them, we care about them, and they need this organization of information around relationships, and they need to stay in touch with people, and they don't have any good tools for it. So that's the story.
Super important part of any business, and especially startups, is who's your team that's around you. And so I'd love to hear you talk about the role that you play, the role that Martin plays.
Yeah.
Has that been delivered and carved out and delineated, and who's next that needs to come onto the team for you guys to fulfill the mission?
Yeah, so Martin and I have a pretty natural and traditional breakdown of responsibilities for a tech startup. He's CTO, I'm CEO, which essentially means like I'm product strategy, marketing, design if I have to, but we try to get somebody else to do that because I'm not a great designer. And he is the engineer, and he does all the coding. I do very minor amounts of coding, like literally changing copy and colors on stuff. Martin is a full stack engineer. He's really talented, works really hard and fast. And that's how we break it down. I mean, at a very broad level, I think about my role as the direction, deciding on the direction of the company in collaboration with my entire team and putting everybody in a situation where they can achieve at their highest possible level, right? Now, because we're so small, that also means doing a lot of stuff myself. So I do like a ton of data entry. I do a ton of emailing people saying, hey, we'd like you to use this stuff. I do a ton of customer interviews. I do customer support. I do a million different things. But at a high level, it's about how do I arrange this team and this company so that everybody can succeed.
And so assuming there's money to pay for it, who's the next role on the team that gets you guys?
Yeah, we need another full stack engineer, preferably. I mean, so that's what it's going to be. Yeah, it's going to be somebody who's a senior engineer. We'll bring our product designer on full time because we definitely need that. But yeah.
And so we got the reason for the business down, how the prototypes are starting to play out. I'd love to hear you talk about cash, which is the toughest part of any business, whether they're mature or starting out. You have a really interesting initial funding story that I'd love for you to chat about for a little bit. And then coming out of that, if you can describe how the business is going to make money.
Yeah, so the short answer, I'll go a little bit backwards. The way we plan to make money is by being a SaaS business, right? So we'll provide our software as a service to the freelancers, and they will pay a monthly subscription. So it'll be a freemium model. You will get to use Brief for free, and we are working out what the tiers are going to be. Starting like next week, the week after, we're going to be surveying our existing beta users to find out what is the feature set that they're most excited to pay for. We know that at a high level, they will pay if they get clients. Right, so it's about how do we make that connection, show them that what they're doing is driving client acquisition. So we are funded. I mentioned that we raised a friends and family round, and that happened very early in the life of Brief. It was back when we were thinking about this thing that would ping you in the middle of a conversation with some cool idea from your Evernote. So I had a lot of great relationships from outside in, that first startup that I did a while ago. And basically the founders and investors of that, not all of them, but enough of them, we kept in touch, and I told them that I was going to do something, and that it was going to be something along these lines. And I said, I'm going to work on it and make a prototype essentially, or an alpha product, and then I'm going to go try to raise money. And one of the guy who founded Outside In and originally hired me, his name is Stephen Johnson. He's a popular author. Is kind of based in Marin County. He wrote Everything Bad is Good for You, The Invention of Air, Innovation, Where Good Ideas Come From, a whole lot of books. And he's he's an entrepreneur several times over. Founded Outside In, Feed, Plastic. I was just telling him about what I was working on and what my fundraising plans were, and he said, I think you should raise like $100K or something to sort of make it real. And I said, I don't know if I want to spend the amount of time it takes to raise a round on $100,000 because it takes a lot of time, and I think we can get pretty far without that. And he said, what do you mean? He's like, you had a coffee with me, I think I'm going to be in. That is, have some coffees, it'll work out. So that's how the round began. And it actually it sounds super easy at the start, but then I ended up having to spend a lot of time to go from 50 to 100. That last bit when you are idea only and not even a very clear idea and a market that you think is there but you're not quite sure, was very hard. So it was I could only really get money from people who had known me for a long time, which is why it had ended up being a friends and family round, right? That's what friends and family is. It's people who have known you for a long time. They might already be investors, but they're investing in you. They're not investing in the product you haven't made yet, right? So that was, I've gone back and forth on that, to be honest. Was that the right time to take money? It allowed us to go much faster through the prototyping stage because we were able to pay a designer who was a freelancer at the time to make prototypes more rapidly, and our research phase went much faster because of that. But there were times when I was gee, I'm not sure we have an idea here, right? And maybe if I hadn't raised the money, we would have called it some fun prototypes and then called it a day. And that might have been a good thing because now I'm not on the hook for it. On the other hand, having raised money means the last thing I want to do in life is to go back to those guys and say, we used the money and we have nothing to show for it, right? So I've tried so hard, and I'm going to continue to try incredibly hard to turn this into something. And so raising money puts a pressure on you that is important, I think. Great to do it without that if you can, right? Always better to raise less money. But I think that it really forced us to see through any trying time. Right, I feel really beholden to make something really fantastic out of the money they've given me.
I remember when we had first met up, you said once you got the money, failure no longer became an option.
Yeah. I gotta make something happen.
And so to that point, North Bay Innovation Summit.
Yeah.
Tell me a little about that.
That was fun. So the North Bay Innovation Summit, for those of you, I have no idea who was there, who wasn't, but it's a day-long set of talks and a small pitch competition sponsored by the SoCo Nexus, the Sonoma County Nexus. And they have an application process. You send a written application, and then you give a 5-minute pitch, and they basically the winner of the whole day gets $7,000, which we did, and that was really great. It was a lot of fun. I liked it. It was a great day. It was actually the best part of it, more than the check, was an opportunity to try my pitch out in front of a warm audience and find out if the story I was telling resonated. And that was actually a huge success. Even if we hadn't won, at least I got to try my pitch out in a comfortable environment that wasn't in front of a VC who was going to hear it once and then write me off forever. So I got to try some things that were in my head a little bit risky, but went really well. So that was great.
I'd love to hear about how your relation with pitching yourself or your own business changed from the theater days to now actually having this experience of pitching brief. to folks that are potential investors, if that morphed at all?
Yeah, so the short answer there is it's way easier to pitch a business opportunity where somebody stands to make money if you succeed than it is to pitch basically a modern theater thing. like nobody stood to make any money with the theater projects I was pitching way back when, and I knew that, and they knew that, and the stakes were really low, so everything moved super slowly. Now that's very different if you're like, I've got the rights to some movie that everybody's heard of, and we're going to turn it into a musical, and we've got amazing people. It's a completely different story, right? And I've been part of those situations too, and they're great. But I would say that more importantly, as part of the startup journey, the pitch is easy if you really, really care about it and you know what you're talking about, right? So I have given pitches, and I'm not happy to admit it, but I will, because this is what we're learning here, right? Where I intellectually knew what the market opportunity was, and I had like the slides that fit the format, but the story hadn't hit my heart yet. I didn't know the story deep down to my core, where like I could just sit there and talk about it for 20 minutes in a very personal way. And I don't know, you guys seem kind of interested, so like I can today, right? And those pitches go really badly. Like you end up in a sort of intellectual gymnastics situation, instead of just saying like, this is what we're doing, I believe really strongly in it because I know that there are people who have this problem. I've been one of them. I've spent a lot of time with them. They are using my existing product. They are excited about it. They are sending me unsolicited feedback about it. That is a very different story and feels very differently from I've studied a thing and the numbers add up in a certain way and there's an opportunity there, right? I don't know, at least for me, right? Like, and I think I don't know, I'm trained as an actor, but like, you can only act a part well if it connects with you.
I like that a ton. And so what I'd love to do is do a quick 5-minute speed round, and then we'll pivot towards more of your beliefs on entrepreneurship and how you self-manage as an entrepreneur and stuff like that. So, team or single entrepreneur?
Team.
Business plan, yes or no?
No.
Crowdfunding, yes or no?
Depends on the product.
Yeah. Co-working space, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if you have to pay for it and you don't have the money, no.
Gotcha. Exit fast or grow as a strategy?
Grow, yeah.
Prototype user validation, yes or no?
Yes.
China or US?
US.
Apple or Android?
Android. I'm an Android user, but our beta's on iOS, so.
Yeah. Biggie or Tupac?
Wait, what? Biggie or Tupac?
Yeah.
Oh.
Probably the most important question tonight.
I mean, I live around the corner from Marin City right now, so I guess I gotta say Tupac.
Fair enough. East or West Coast? I gotcha.
Yeah, it's east. I grew up on the East Coast. I've been here for a year. It's been great, but yeah.
I'll try and bail you out. Napa or Sonoma?
Oh, Sonoma.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Good answer.
No brainer.
Awesome. So one of the things that I notice with any of my entrepreneurial clients and in my own experience is immediately you're in the deep end with water way over your head, and emotional management becomes actually the tougher coin to master than the actual business execution. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts about, as you're going through this curve, how do you ever shut it off? When is enough? How do you not get overwhelmed and keep the clarity of your decision-making process, which is so critical during this show?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's been an interesting journey for me, because if you, like, I sort of pride myself on being a cool customer and like super optimistic and positive. And this is the one experience that's like pushed me to the limit in that regard. And there have been days when I'm like the roller coaster is incredible. Like 1 minute an investor is saying, no, that's the worst idea I've ever heard, I'll never do anything. And then the next minute a user is like, thank you, you just got me a client. So you cannot work moment to moment. It's death. Like,
but that's typically how we think.
Yeah. I mean, so it's really hard to do that, right? So one like tactic that is super cliche but has worked is taking walks. And I know it's in the Steve Jobs book, and I know he does it all the time. And I read that, and I was like, oh, give me a break. But when I work at home by myself most of the day, and I'm like at my I'll wake up at 7. It's so easy to go to my computer and just start in and start at it, and to just pound away. So I try to, like, an hour in, go do some type of exercise that doesn't take very long, either yoga or I take a swim or something, jog. And then in the middle of the afternoon, if I'm banging my head against a problem, I take a walk. I take a 15-minute walk, and I come back, and it's usually clearer. And I don't know. It's not going to work for everybody. I don't know why it works for me, but it does.
I had a friend of mine that once said, you never feel worse off after a walk.
Yeah, it's weird. And it's not a waste of time either. And then also, like, keeping people around you who are important to you and care about you no matter what. Like, and having a really great relationship with your co-founder. Like, you need to be able to say to your co-founder, like, I'm not feeling good about this direction, and that's like the one person that you need to be able to confide in that is not going to run away because you, the CEO, had a bad day, right? Like, you got to see eye to eye with your co-founder. I mean, so I'm starting to get into an advice situation right now, and I said I wouldn't. So that has been my experience. I'm sure there are some people out there who had different experiences and have succeeded, but my experience has been that having my co-founder be just as motivated as I am and in it to win it makes all the difference.
How many times, if any, have you considered quitting along the path?
I mean, that's sort of hard, right? Like, I consider it in the same way that, like, I consider moving to Italy for the rest of my life, which isn't like a real consideration. It's just like a thought that happens, and you're like, oh, that would be nice. Maybe that'd be good. But it's not like real, right? Like, I've never put the wheels in motion to figure that out, right? It's never been a serious
started
thought.
The email, Dear Martin. That's with traits you found.
No, I haven't. Maybe he has. I don't know, but I don't think he has. No. I mean, no.
And so, as far as daily habits, I'd love to hear first and last hour of your day, because I think those are really sort of key separators of successful entrepreneurs are folks that manage those two time slots well.
First and last hour? Yeah, so I usually check our metrics first thing in the morning, right? Like, I look at who installed, how are they doing, did anybody complain?
Could I pause you a quick question? Because that's really interesting to me that you do that. A second ago, we were talking about how you take things moment by moment, and so for me, the risk in doing that is if it's negative news, you're immediately starting off on a negative spot. So how do you hold center while you check metrics in the morning?
So I don't look for trends. I look for problems, like bugs that are occurring, or like a user who didn't get through the onboarding for some reason. It's like, are there any fires to put out based on what's happened over the past 24 hours? That's basically what I'm looking at first there. Gotcha. I've been thinking about, like, journaling or something first thing in the morning, but I don't know. I haven't done it yet. It might not be a good time for me. I'm traditionally a night owl. So last hour of the day is, I mean, sometimes I use it for data entry. So there's 5:30 to 6:30, which is like the moments before I stop for dinner, and then there's 10 p.m. to 11 p.m., which is like really the last hour of the day. So the moments before dinner are like, let me make sure that everybody is on track to do what they need to do when I step away from the computer for the next hour. The 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. is actually spent like making, like we have an ability right now to ensure that our user's experience is going to be good in the morning, because the way our system works is like you get a notification in the morning, your suggestions are ready, and so what we do is we just make sure like all systems are a go for the last hour of the day, and then I do some data entry stuff that just needs to happen. I mean, it's not really, no.
Any tools, whether they're apps or processes that you use that you swear by as far as productivity or mental management?
I mean, Slack has been really great. You'd be surprised that like even at 5 people, it's good. I mean, everybody says that, so it's not that enlightening.
And for those that don't know, can you unpack what Slack is?
Oh, Slack. Slack is it's basically group chat. It's like chat rooms from AOL used for workplace and designed and really well. Like if you ever used ICQ, it's ICQ, right? What IRC? Yeah. Sorry, ICQ is the protocol for the instant messaging. Yeah, IRC with like a really nice user interface. So not a new idea, but really great. The best thing about it is the way it syncs between your mobile device and your computer, so you don't get multiple notifications for the same messages. So other tools, I will say that like a spreadsheet is my friend. I am not deep into CRMs or anything like that, and that's part of the reason why I created Brief, is because like I really can't handle the setup and like the idea that I have to categorize every single one of my contacts as a lead or not a lead or whatever. I just don't have a personality type for it or something. But also I think at this stage my customer base is small enough that I can give individualized attention. Like I'm gonna put Noah on the spot. Like Noah sat down next to me and I looked at his name tag and I was like, oh, you signed up for Brief. And like, because I don't use some automated tool, I know that. Like I'm staring at those lists every day, I'm manually manipulating them a lot. So I'm sort of a big believer in do things that don't scale until they absolutely break and you can't handle it anymore. And that'll happen in like 2 weeks, but but for now, that's how it is.
One of the most, so when Jared and I first met up and we were talking about putting this evening together, I know you've already touched on it a bit, but I'd love to hear you elaborate a bit more. And that's the role that your background in theater has played and the way it informs, you know, how you execute the business and inspiration and things of that level.
Yeah, so I'm gonna stand. Like I'm like falling. This is like ridiculous. This
in the grandpa chair. I feel like I need a
this okay? He's good. So if I talk about theater, I have to like stand and present it, right? So I think that a startup and putting on a show are incredibly similar, and I originally gravitated towards startups for this reason. It's always a small group of people trying to do something that feels impossible without enough time and not enough money, but the show must go on, you must launch your product. The biggest difference is that in technology, the curtain doesn't go down, right? Like it's the website's up all night. People can touch your app any hour of the day, in any time zone, in any place in the world. Which means 2 things. You don't get to go have an opening night party and just like hang out and not worry about anything. But also, you get to touch way more people and communicate with way more people. I got totally addicted to the idea that millions of people could be using our product as opposed to like the 100 people who were able to afford a ticket in the room today. Or I mean, I actually worked at 11,000 seat theater once, so that was pretty exciting, but still not millions. And still not like asynchronous when you're not paying attention, they're using it and you get to communicate to massive audiences in an incredibly relevant way and change their lives in a meaningful fashion. And so to me, I'm still putting on a show. It's just a different medium, and it's more real. So in terms of training, like being able to speak in front of a room is a comfortable thing for me. I like doing that, and that helps on occasion. But it's actually like way less of the job than is envisioned by Silicon Valley and HBO, right? Like you spend very little time in front of a room this size. And if you spend too much time in front of a room this size, it means you're not spending time on your product with your customers, finding out what their real problems are, and something's probably going to go wrong. So I actually got to go. I'll see you.
Financing, human capital, and market conditions. Is there one of those 3 that is the next pillar to fall for you that gets the business to that next level? Is there a missing link right now?
Sorry, financing what?
Yeah, so finance, just straight up cash. Human capital, is there a new team player? You were mentioning getting a new engineer. Or is there a market condition that needs to shift that takes you guys to the next level?
Definitely not a market condition. The market is deeply in our favor. Like I mean, all the people who raise their hands saying they're freelancers, like that is a trend occurring all over the world, and we've got the wind in our sails, and if anything, I'm a little bit late on that. But the human capital or financing, what's more important right now? I mean, team always comes first, right? Like if you can get human capital without financial capital, then like everything is going to work out because you can make what you want to make. So yeah, in that order, human capital and then financing, which would make a lot more human capital possible.
Love it, love it. Let's cross over to Q&A. Who has some questions for Jared and his path? Crickets.
Yes. Today? Oh, with the product, yeah. So it's going to be a monthly subscription fee. We don't have that built out yet. So Brief is in private beta. We've got about 100 users, and we're going to test on those 100 users what the right tiering structure is, so that we figure out what we're going to charge on.
Is there?
Yes.
How do you know what you went through a
Yeah.
what's the value of the company at?
That's a good question. So we did a convertible note. So you avoid the hard valuation question, but you still put a cap on that note usually. So we backed out of how much we would want to give away in a qualified financing. So we said, to get to the next milestone, we think we're going to have to raise this much money. We are willing to give away no more than this percentage of the company. Therefore, if we back out of those numbers, then today, if we want to give a discount to our investors in the note, here's what that note should be capped at. It's the best we could do.
What's a way for the attendees here today to explore Brief and start to?
Oh yeah, so you go to brief.ai, check out our website, and if you are interested in using the product, you can throw your email address in the field. You can follow us on Twitter at Brief Inc. You can follow me at Jared Ran, JaredRan as in Nancy. We've got a YouTube channel. Actually, I do interviews of freelancers. I call it 3 Whats and 3 Whys, and we do it over Periscope. And I basically ask you, what do you do, what are your goals, and what are your obstacles? And every time you answer one of those questions, I ask you why 3 times. And we found that helps us get to the heart of the matter, and it's really fun. So if you are interested in plugging your business a little bit through whatever limited channels I have, but mostly having a fun 15-minute conversation with me, you can email me at jared@brief.ai or just find me after this and talk to me. Those are really fun. It's a good way to get you thinking about what you're doing. Yeah.
You mentioned the friends and family around and the money that kind of keeps you going, gives you purpose. You had another business model that you pivoted from. At what point in this process can you see the need to pivot or the need to say enough's enough? How do you find that?
How do I know when to make a change on what we're building? I base it very heavily on user response. So basically, I create a hypothesis in my head of who I think needs what we're making, and I find those people. And first I talk to them, and then if the conversation goes well and the customer interviews indicate that that need is real, I try to make something. And then if what we're making shows some sign of life, then I follow that path. And so what's interesting is, this word pivot is a lot to say about it, right? So I've never felt like we burnt anything we did to the ground and started totally from scratch, right? I've put something in front of a user, I've followed their signals, and I've seen where that path leads. So in my head, I set out one day to create something that suggested information you did not know that was stored in the cloud that you needed at the right time in the right place. We are doing that today, right? We are suggesting who you should contact, how you should contact them at the right time and in the right place. And the information is all in the cloud. we're just doing it in a different context. So I was basically following a trail around this, what my users were showing me was interesting to them and what I saw as problems from my own experience. And I mean, I never like sat, I don't think we removed a lot of code, but the first line of code that we wrote is still alive with us today. Like we have repos that we experiment with that were written in like June when we were messing around with some document classification stuff that are going to be useful to what we're doing today. So pivot is a harsh word. I don't know. I think we've done a lot of refinement. We've followed the trail.
Well, on that note, I just want to say thank you to everybody that came out this evening. Another extra special thank you to Ramekins for hosting and putting on such a great spread this evening. Keep an eye out for next month's event. These will be going on monthly, and please feel free to hang around for a bit longer and continue to network and make some new connections and see where this all goes. Big thank you to Jared for coming out tonight, and we wish you the best of luck with Brief.
Thank you for good questions. Thanks for listening, guys. It was fun.